Hey everybody, I'm back. My name is Shoshanna. I've met some of you before. I don't know if I've met all of you before. Hey, you look sort of familiar. It's nice to see you. Yeah, I'm glad you got my name right, Shoshanna. Pastor Sue really wanted to be here. But I said, Pastor Sue, take a break. You've been working hard all week. Why don't you just go over to Hartford Hall, have some coffee or something? I can be very persuasive when I need to. So she kind of put up a fight. But then she headed over there, and she'll come back later, so don't worry. But I begged her to let me talk today because I really want to give you the backstory of what happened way back when Mark was telling that story in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5. It's kind of an amazing story. And he gives a lot of good details. He's right on the mark with everything he said. But I want to give you the backstory because, you see, I was there. I was there even before the story began. Years before, I'd given birth to a beautiful little baby boy. He was such a delight. I loved him so much. He was so sweet to hold. And I kept him safe. I was a good mom, I always put him in the car seat every time. He had a sweet little bed where he could sleep safely, and I could sleep too, and I wouldn't have to worry about him. I loved him so much. Such a sweet boy. My husband loved him too. And then he got older, which is what happens, But then something changed when he was still quite small. His behavior became puzzling. He would get up in the middle of the night and roam the house. Like I couldn't keep him in his crib anymore. And then not only did his behavior start to change, but he started saying strange things. I tried so hard to take care of him, but he was so difficult. He got bigger and bigger. I couldn't hold him in my arms certainly anymore. I couldn't hold him back. He did whatever he wanted to do. He was bigger than me at this point. Even my husband couldn't keep him from doing anything he wanted to do. He began to roam the streets. He started to howl and make no sense at all. The sweet little boy that I knew was in there was not the one that everybody saw. It got worse and worse. Finally, the police came and said, we've got to restrain him. They still do that today, I know, to keep others safe. But let me tell you, it broke my heart when I saw him, when they came and shackled my son and connected him to chains. My sweet little boy. My sweet little boy, though, was a big man. He was a strong man. He broke those chains. He broke those shackles, and he just kept roaming around. People were scared of him. I could tell it. And I think my son knew it too, even though he really couldn't talk well at that point. He began to just hang out in the cemetery, because nobody really wants to hang out in a cemetery. Nobody bothered him there. And he would roam around the grounds, howling, crying out, and sometimes even exhibiting self-injurious behavior, as you folks like to say these days. I would watch him every day. My heart was just so broken. I felt so alone. My other friends who had kids the same age as mine, they were doing totally different things. Their kids were going off to school and getting good grades. I saw my friends riding around with bumper stickers on the back of their vehicles talking about their honors student. I thought my son was going to be an honors student. Instead, there he is, roaming around the cemetery, crying out, alone. And I was so alone. And then, one day, something remarkable happened. A bunch of Jewish people showed up in a boat. They pulled up to the shore. I saw them when they pulled up onto shore. And I also saw my son come running, and I thought, oh no. The townsfolk are not going to think this is the best welcoming committee for visitors to get to our part of the country. But there he went. He went running down to meet them, and I couldn't stop him. I just sort of watched, horrified, from a distance. And these men from Israel, who never, ever come to our part of the country because they think we're unclean. We do things like have farms with pigs in them. And the people from Israel, they just avoid us all the time. But this day on this little boat came this band of men from Israel. And when they met my son on the shore, one of the men got up and he spoke to my son, and I thought, oh boy, here we go. But the man said to my son, "Come out of him." And my son said some kind of garbage like he always does. But this man again spoke to him and he said, "What is your name?" It was like he was speaking to whatever had possessed my son for years. And my son's voice answered, but it wasn't my son. It was something else. I don't know what it was. This voice came back and said, "My name is Legion." Legion. My heart sank even further, if that's even possible. You know what Legion is? Legion is like a military unit of 6,000 soldiers. There were 6,000 soldiers inside my sweet baby boy, who was now a man. No wonder I couldn't get through him. How could I get through to 6,000 strong forces? Jesus said to all those 6,000 forces, "Come out." And these voices spoke back and said, "Don't send us away. Send us somewhere else, but don't send us out of the country. Send us into those pigs over there." And this man I'd never seen before, said, "All right, go into those pigs over there. Those 2,000 pigs." And suddenly this force came out of my son and into the pigs, and the pigs started acting crazy. That didn't surprise me. They acted crazy, and they went running toward a cliff and down into the water, and they drowned. I couldn't believe it. Because then my son, he started to talk just like a regular person. He was calm. He wasn't running all over the place. But I also knew that we weren't out of the woods, because the men who were guarding and herding all those pigs, those swine, ran off. I knew they were going to tell the owners what had happened, and the owner of those pigs was not going to be happy. And neither were the people who were watching the pigs, because I'm sure they were headed right over to the unemployment office. They'd lost their job because of my son. So I was worried. But I was also happy, filled with a joy I hadn't felt in years, to see my son, talking and acting just like all the other kids his age. I heard my son say to this man, "Let me go with you." And I thought, yes, let my son go with you. You care about my son. He'll be better off with you. Let him go with you and your friends. But the man said, "No. You need to stay here with your friends." Did you hear that part? He thought my son had friends. My son hadn't had any friends. He said, "Go stay here with your friends and go tell all your friends what you have experienced here today." And my son took off. He was so thrilled to have a real job, a mission in his life. He ran off. And I'm here to tell you, just 3 chapters later, when Jesus, because that was Jesus who came, when Jesus came back to our area, it wasn't just my son, one person meeting him on the shore. It was 6,000 people. 6,000, 4,000. It was a big number. It was 4,000. And I thought to myself, you know what? Now I can have a bumper sticker on my vehicle. I'm going to put this one on my car. My son brought 4,000 people to Christ. La-di-da. That's what I wanted to put on my vehicle. Put it on the back of my donkey, whatever. But my other kids said, "Mom, that would be kind of snarky." So I didn't think I should do that. But I was so grateful. Now my son was doing wonderful things, greater than I'd even dreamed he might do, bringing all those people to Jesus for healing. I'm so grateful to Jesus. I'm so grateful to Jesus' friends who dared to go with him into a strange place to deal with people who were acting strangely like my son. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful. And I know that huge crowd that my son brought to Jesus is continuing to grow and is huge these days. And Pastor Sue tells me that the disciples of Jesus have expanded all the way here to Dover, New Hampshire, and the surrounding areas, and that the people here in this community are doing amazing things. Pastor Sue told me there was a wonderful gathering here last night of people in recovery welcomed into this place for a delicious meal and for a wonderful meeting afterward and for healing touch. She said she saw and heard how grateful they are for all of you. And I want to say to you, every one of those guests last night, every one of them has a mom like me, or a dad, or other family members who feel so isolated sometimes and so alone, and their hearts break because their kids often feel so alone. So I want to thank you. Thank you for being followers of Jesus who bring the love that Jesus has to so many people and gives so many a sense of community and love that they have never felt before. Thank you. Thank you so much.